Welcome to the AW Confidential podcast. Today's guest says that our otherness is not an obstacle to overcome, our otherness is a strength. I grew up in Upper Manhattan around the 80s in New York City, which were some of the toughest times that we've seen up to date. Well, New York right now is tough, but while Wall Street was having a boom, the rest of the city was in shambles. We saw over 1,800 homicides, an introduction to crack cocaine, which unleashed a tidal wave of violent crimes and addiction. It was the time New York City nearly went bankrupt. If you were a kid during this era and living in the midst of all this, imagining anything different was impossible on some days. Andrea Navedo has a long list of acting credits. She played the beloved Xiomara Villanueva on Jane the Virgin for 5 seasons. Most recently, she was seen as Valerie Sandoval in the ABC hit drama A Million Little Things, one of my favorites. And now her newest role is as an author. Her book, Our Otherness is Our Strength Wisdom from the Boogie Down Bronx, is hitting shelves very soon. And we are so here for it. Andrea, welcome, my love. How are
Thank
you?
you. Thank you. I'm very good. Very good. I'm excited about this. This was a big goal of mine for a long time. And I had a lot of doubt in myself whether or not I could actually achieve it. And I did. And here we are talking, and
I
it's exciting.
know. Well, congratulations. I mean, sharing such a personal story with the world deserves, you know, congratulations all on its own. Um, I finished the book
Mhm.
and I have to tell you, I felt all kinds of feelings. And I was surprised that it was so personal and that you went so deep. So thank you for sharing so much of you. As a girl raised, in Upper Manhattan, New York City in the 80s, it made me nostalgic. It was incredibly relatable. And like I said, thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability because it's going to change a lot of lives. I think it's going to plant a lot of seeds.
I
I'm
hope
sure of
so.
it. I'm
That
sure of
was
it.
that was my ultimate goal, was to be of service. That I realized while I was on Jane the Virgin that acting wasn't just for me. It was much bigger than me. And that I realized it was like, oh my God, I have a platform. And I wanted to sort of demystify the whole celebrity or who actors are or who I am or anything like that, and just kind of use my life experience to help others if I could. At the very least, share my experiences so that someone might see themselves in me, and maybe be inspired to do something for their lives.
Well, you beat me to the first question because that's exactly what I was going to ask you.
Oh, really? What was
Well,
the
if
inspiration?
what
Yeah.
was because being I remember when I went through the process of writing my book, it was really, really difficult because I had to go to that place of pain and fear and dig deep to
Mm,
write in my truth. So I
yeah.
know that was difficult for you. So one of the things that came up, I know for me during the writing of my book, and I want to ask you this question. You wrote a lot about your mom's journey as you wrote about your own.
Mhm.
And it made me think about our generational traumas. I think I have to say that I think not most, but I think all people have some type of trauma. We are human beings. Life is hard.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, so that was one of my aha moments reading your book. We have generational trauma, and I sort of saw the beginning of a pattern as you were living your own truth, like your own
Mhm.
life. So
Sure.
did you have any aha moments during the writing process?
Oh my gosh. Can you see my dog? Is he in the background? Can you see
I
it? I
don't.
hear him scratching on the.
but I've seen cats, I've seen
Okay,
children.
okay, good. He's in here. I have him
We keep
locked
it
in here.
real.
I have him locked in here with me because he's going to see the FedEx guy, the UPS guy, the person walking their dog, and he's going to start barking his head off. So anyway, um, did I see the correlation in like my mom's life and that kind of thing?
Yes,
Um,
like, was that an aha moment for you, or were there others? Like, what was
while I
that?
was writing.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, like I already knew about it and I wanted to show that like in it because I knew about it in my through therapy and through working on myself over the years and trying to heal myself and trying to heal my own trauma from childhood. And I didn't get too deep about that in the book. I'm writing a second book. I have a 2-book
Ooh.
publishing deal. So um the second book might have that. I'm not sure. I haven't decided. But anyway, uh, I just want okay, let me just say this. This book was inspired or is sort of like a springboard off of a commencement speech that I gave to DeWitt Clinton High School, my alma mater in the Bronx, my high school alma mater. And I was invited 30 years later after having graduated to give the commencement speech there for that particular year. And I was like, my God, like 30 years later, and I have to talk to these kids. I'm going to talk to these kids. And what do I say? And I didn't want them to see me on this podium and, quote unquote successful and how, like, and not be able to relate to me, like, and, or feel like they don't know how to get there, whatever their version of success is. And I said, I tried to imagine what it was like to remember what it was like. I was one of those brown kids sitting in that audience on commencement day. And I tried to think of my life experiences and what some of them that they might be able to relate to. And then also I tried to paint a picture to show that what they thought were strikes against them, or what to me, and that's where the title comes from. Our otherness is our strength. I felt like I was the other, and the other meaning I was not what mainstream media put out there as something that was valuable. And if they did put anything that looked brown, meaning Latino, Black, or non-white, it was not a very flattering view, painted as drug dealers, as prostitutes, or whatever,
Made.
right, maids, whatever the case may be. And so for me, as I realized later on that I said, what I thought were strikes against me, being Latina, being from the Bronx, growing up with substance abuse, having been on welfare, having experienced physical trauma, I always felt like that made me bad, like, or I wasn't like
Or
valued,
tainted, or just bad
painted,
good. Yes.
yeah, or, just not worthy of being featured in television, let's say, right? So I realized that everything that I had gone through, all the challenges growing up in the Bronx, was actually not a bad thing. It was a good thing. It was something that fortified me and strengthened me and gave me the power to go the long haul in a very difficult career, such as acting. Acting is a very hard career.
And I always say, when you choose that creative path, be prepared to receive the no's, because when you get that one yes,
Mhm.
like, wow, it definitely, it's like, when a flower sort of opens up, it literally opens you up to so much, but getting to that yes, it can take years,
You have to
decades.
be resilient. You have to be tough. You have to persevere. You have to be able to take no, 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 no. You have to be self-directive. You have to take a lot of action. You got to go for it. And growing up in the Bronx, you gotta freaking
Yeah.
survive, man. You have to survive. Or growing up in New York City, or growing up in any urban area, you learn how to survive. And so I realized, I'm like, I'm going to talk to these kids because I don't know what they're thinking. But maybe they're thinking or feeling how I felt when I was growing up, feeling like the other, feeling like an outside, feeling undervalued or not valued at all. And I wanted to show them with this speech that what they think are strikes against them or being the other is actually something that they could use, and it could be their superpower. So that was what the speech was about. And as I pitched my idea for a book, my editor, Adrienne Ingram, loved my first idea, but she saw the speech and she said, Andrea, that's a book. You have more than one book in you. And so we decided this would be the first book. So,
When you spoke about the otherness, it really it hit home, because I remember growing up, I felt that, all those things that made me different were weaknesses.
exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. Yeah.
And it sort of created a feeling of not enough. I'm not enough light skin enough. I'm not enough, my hair's not straight enough. It just created so many not enoughs.
Mhm.
So reading how you turn that into your superpower
Mhm.
is what makes this book really special.
Oh, good. Thank you.
And I said that without getting teary-eyed, so I'm excited.
Thank you.
Now, there were so many stories within the book that resonated with me and will with others. But there was one particular moment that I felt was like a wake-up call. It's sort of, you even mentioned that when this incident happened, which involved a pit bull named Sarah in an apartment alone with you said you felt a flutter. You
Mhm.
felt like something was wrong or was off. That's the way I interpret it.
Mhm.
Now, the encounter was with the dog of your then boyfriend, which you mentioned, Marco.
Mhm.
It felt like a very scary moment, but also a defining moment. Would you say that that flutter, that moment was a wake up call?
Well, honestly, I think the wake up call happened after the dog moment.
What?
So
That
for me,
moment was very scary.
well, in the moment, I was more like in survival mode, and it was just after when I realized that I could have died
Yeah.
and no one would have been there to save me. That was the wake up call.
Mm.
So the flutter, now I like to think so. As far as the flutter is concerned, I think we all have instincts. We're animals at the end of the day, and we have instincts. And having had the experience with Zara, the pit bull, she had never been vicious towards me, but I didn't trust her. And, put two and two together. Here I am in the apartment alone, all these things. I realized, oh my goodness, like that's where the instincts come from. And then I went against my instincts, right? And so that's the thing that's really important. I didn't highlight that in the book, but going against our own instincts, can be dangerous.
Well, I was going to ask,
Yeah.
um, do you believe that your intuition, if you lean into your intuition, that is or for me, it's a compass, or I've had to learn the hard way that that is my compass. Do
Mm.
you believe that that was sort of the beginning of you utilizing your instincts, your intuition, that inner voice, and it led you to the next moment and the next moment? Obviously, there is some wisdom there, because as we have experiences, we learn, and hopefully we, build our library of wisdom. But do you feel that your intuition has also been um, a tool in your life, in your sort of.
Well, that's one of the tools that the Bronx gave me, honestly. I think growing up the way I grew up, all the difficult challenges, you know, I mean, like I talk about in the book, you can't be soft growing up in the Bronx. It's just not gonna fly. And I was soft. So
Girl, you went through it, but your mom was, I mean, you got it from somewhere. Your
yeah,
mom was no joke.
no,
I
I
mean,
know it's no joke.
the
Yeah.
incidents where you got bullied,
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
she came to bat. She was like, "I'm
No,
ready.
hmm,
I'm
for
I'm
sure.
Mama Bear. I'm Mama Bear."
Absolutely. So I think, the flutter is having an awareness. So growing up in the city, right? And and like stuff goes down, right? So you have to develop this sixth sense where you have to constantly be on the lookout. You're always like your antennas up, what's going on, what's my surroundings, who's around, what's the temperature, of the atmosphere, and I'm not talking weather, the people, all those things. So I think the flutter was definitely one of the part of the superpowers for sure.
Oh, yes, it was. So, as a mom of two and having collected or gathered all that wisdom, what advice do you give your daughter today as far as life is concerned and just, on this journey that we're all in? Is there a piece of advice that sort of stands out for you that you have given your daughter and can help any one of us?
Hmm. Well,
There's so much, right?
yes, I mean, I do talk to my kids about things. I like to share my stories just the way I'm sharing my stories in this book, because I think stories are really good ways to teach, but they're also ways that you lead by example. I believe in leading by example. My mother led by example, my dad led by example. And they made plenty of mistakes, trust. And I wasn't going to highlight that in the book, because why? You know, but they also did plenty of right things. And I think that, my parents led by example. My mom leaving in a toxic marriage, abusive marriage, my dad, showing me what college was about and all kinds of things by going to school himself, exposing me to the arts. I'm an actress because my dad, and he didn't want me to be an actress, but it was his fault. I told him, it's your fault. You
Come
took
on,
me to all
we're
those
Latinos.
plays.
No, our parents don't want.
Yeah. Why'd you take me to plays and take me to museums to expose me to art if you don't want me to, So it's like, it's your fault I became an actress. So, but anyway, I believe in leading by example. So I do talk to my children. And I do if I'm going to talk, I talk about taking care of themselves, about loving themselves. But honestly, I do that by example. I show my kids every single freaking day how I take care of myself, how I go to therapy. I tell them I had therapy today. I tell them sometimes what I talked about in therapy. I tell them the things I'm working on in therapy sometimes. I tell them what my challenging story is and how I've overcome. And then they see me showing up like I'm an actress. I show up and I book a freaking job. I write a book. That's leading by example. Writing a book, and my kids see me doing that, like taking action, taking the bull by the horns. And they also see my insecurities. I share my insecurities. I share my fears, my doubts, and sometimes they have to talk me up a little bit, but I want them to see, like today I was in the car with my friend Angie. She's visiting from LA. And I ended up telling her the story about how I basically had a panic attack, anxiety attack, right before an audition. And then how I went anyway in spite of my fear, and how I was looking at the other actresses who are well-known actresses, who I was like, oh my gosh, she's so good, and she would be great as this in this role, and she would be great in the role. I'm going to tell you the movie. It's Bright, the Will Smith movie. So I'm looking at all these like bomb ass Latina actresses and Black actresses, and I'm like, oh, she is great. She would be so good in this role. So I'm freaking out because I don't think I would be good in the role. I was fearful and, self-critical and all these other things. And so, but my son is hearing this story, and I tell the story about how I go into the room and I'm scared and I kept messing up. I had to do this monologue 3 times. I kept forgetting the lines and dropping the ball. And by the 4th time, I got so pissed at myself that I said, fuck it. Like I cursed through the entire, it was not written that way. I cursed and I added F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb through the entire monologue so I could get through the monologue. And I was like, I know, I was ready to walk out. I had a second scene to do. I was ready to walk out because I was like, they're not going to give me the part. Let me just leave. And he's like, okay, we'll do the second scene. I'm like, oh, we're going to do the second scene? I did that. He directed me. I left. I thought, oh, for sure, I didn't get that role. 2 weeks later, I get a call. You got the part. Like, what? How did I get this part? And what a great story for my son to hear, right? Because, he's a teenager and, teenagers go through challenging things and their own anxieties and fears and whatnot. And he says from the backseat, Ma, you never told me that story. So I was like, well, good. I'm glad you heard this story. So, yeah.
Wow. I love it though. I mean, you showed him that you're human and that you push through those challenges, and we all have them.
Yep.
So I think I commend you on that. Wow, after having one of those moments to go up there and try to finish a monologue, I cannot
I
imagine.
just wanted to go, all right, I'm sorry. I'm leaving now. I suck. I just walk out of the room. But
I think a
no,
lot of people would have
I
done
was
that.
like, so now here's where the Bronx came into play. I said, can I curse on this?
Go ahead, be yourself. That's what
Okay,
it's
I
all
said,
about.
fuck this shit. Oh, you're gonna keep fucking up, Andrea? Hell fucking no. We are going to get through this fucking monologue if it's the last thing we fucking do. God damn it.
And sometimes we need that though. We
Yeah.
need that.
I know. And I cursed my way through that monologue. And so what I found out, so I got the role, right? And I'm working with David Ayers, who's the director. And I looked him up and who he was and stuff. He was a former gangbanger, man. All his movies are like macho and testosterone and all these
Wow.
things. So I realized, I was like, oh, I got the part because I got macho and fucking like, oh, I'm gonna like get through this goddamn monologue. I'm pretty sure it's which is the Bronx.
I love it. I love it. See how when you just kind of embrace who you are and just be yourself, I
Mm-hmm.
think that could be a great gift. I think it is a great
Absolutely.
gift.
Well, honestly, that is really the message is I want people to embrace who they are, whether they're immigrants, whatever country they're from, whether they're gay, whether they got ADHD or dyslexia or whatever the hell is going on, for them, whatever makes them feel different and outside looking in. That's the message. I want them to embrace themselves. Mhm.
Well, because this is the message of the book, and I want to sort of touch up on that otherness. What is for you that otherness? And I know there's many different ones, but
Mhm.
what is that superpower for you? That thing that makes you fire, because you are definitely a force to be reckoned with. What is that otherness, if you had to pick one, that makes you feel like super, I don't want to say superwoman, but I think that's the right word.
I've really learned how to tap into my anger.
Ooh, girl, what? You need to
Anger.
elaborate on that just a little bit.
Like in the bullying story, I talk about, how I was taking and, dealing with just allowing someone to mistreat me. Well, you get mistreated one too many times, and then there's just like a fucking bottom. There's a bottom. Some people's bottoms are really, really low. Some people's are like this little, whatever. Everybody has a different bottom. Well, I hit bottom. And I tapped into my anger. And I'm a Libra, by the way, and we believe in justness and fairness and what's right, or treating people fairly, right? I was being treated unfairly, and it just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And I stuck up for myself for the first time ever.
Of that.
But that anger was awesome. That anger helped me to stand up for myself and protect myself and not allow someone to mistreat me. And that anger's come in handy many, many times, including the audition for Bright. That anger.
So
And when people tell me I
used it for
can't,
good.
like my dad, love my dad. I wanted to go away to college, right? I finally got into a college and I wanted to go away. I want to be like, live the campus life and live in the dorms. Like that was such a big deal to me. And he was like, no, Lehman College is right down the block. You just walk over there. And I'm like, no, I want to go away. I want to live in the dorms. And so we were having a shouting match. And then he finally goes, well, I'm not paying for your school if you go away. And I was like, what? And he goes, I'm only going to pay your tuition. I will not pay for dorm and room and board. And I said, okay, I will figure it out.
Those are my favorite words.
Don't tell me that I can, And so I ended up, I got a loan, and he was like, oh, you're going to be in debt when you get it. I got a huge fight. And I go, no, I won't. You'll see. So the first year I had to take out a loan in order to pay for the dorms. And then after that, I was like, I don't know, like it's going to be too much for me and everything was going to run out. And so after the first semester, so I applied to be a resident assistant. And everyone was telling me, you're a freshman, you can't be a resident assistant. Like nobody gets hired as a freshman. You're supposed to like live on campus first and have the experience. And then you know how to be a good RA, right? So I said, well, I'm applying anyway. So I applied. I was praying. I was like, oh my God, I got to get this because I don't want to fail in front of my father. I don't want to have to go back and go to freaking Lehman College, although Lehman College is awesome. I just wanted to be away, And so then they end up telling me I didn't get it, but they put me on a waiting list. I was like, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then last minute, somebody dropped out and I got it. So I became resident assistant, second semester freshman, and I was a resident assistant the rest of my 4 years in college. And so that's how I paid for room and board. Or actually really my room, because they weren't going to pay for no food. It didn't cover food. So I lived on like rice cakes and peanut butter and
Perseverance. Yes. I love that story.
That's what growing up in the hood will do, man.
I love it. I mean, I think you are amazing, and you know that. I can talk to you for hours.
I know.
But I like to end our interviews with some sort of mantra or quote or advice, and you've given us so much already. But I'm curious. The commencement speech at my rival high school. Thank you very much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Kennedy.
All right.
You had, it's almost like a coming full circle moment. You go back to your school.
Was.
You give this speech. In that speech, what was that one piece of advice that you hoped that those students left away with? If nothing else, what was that? If you can remember, I know it's been a minute.
Just to embrace who they are and where they come from, to embrace. I just wanted them to accept themselves and to believe that they could, whatever they wanted, to do whatever they wanted, but that they could, to give them a sense of agency.
I love it. And I think what this is what the book is about. It really did resonate with me, and it will with so many.
Oh, good.
So Can you share with us some details about the book? What are you going to be working on? How can people find you?
Yes, well, the book is officially published on July 18th of this year, but it is available on pre-order on Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, and a whole bunch. And people can find me at Andrea Navedo on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. On my Instagram, there is a link to my website that has links to all the links to pre-order the book if they would like to.
Yay! Any new projects that we can look forward to? That second book is going to come, isn't it?
Well, the second book, and I haven't started writing it yet, but it's, it's brewing in my mind, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Wish you all the best. I know it's going to change lives. Thank you,
Thank you.
Andrea.
Thank you so much. Mwah.
Mwah. And thank you guys for joining us on another episode of the AW Confidential Podcast. Talk to you soon.